This has been nearly a decade-long fight for you.
It has.
And now it's all changed in the last 24 hours. Now that you've had time to reflect on it, how do you feel?
I feel remarkably good for all of those people whose lives have been affirmed and are being able to live their lives out loud and do things that, frankly, you and I and so many millions of people at home that are watching take for granted, and that is to fall in love and say, I do. And that's a powerful thing. You know, it's interesting in your lead, you know, Google and Apple, these guys have got it for years. They understand in a hyper-connected world, it's a race for talent. And you've got to provide an ample playing field where you can go after the best and the brightest around the world. And as a consequence, companies have made a huge impact on changing the trajectory of this debate. It's certainly not been politicians. It's been the advocacy community, politicians coming late, but public opinion beginning to shift when corporate leaders have stepped up and stepped in and said, wait a second, this is about our ability to compete on an international stage.
Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, all of them wrote a brief to the Supreme Court supporting gay marriage. You know, beyond talent, why do you think these companies got so involved? I
fundamentally think, I mean, just in their fiduciary responsibilities to their shareholder, it's about not just attracting talent, but retaining talent. And it's about representing the people they're serving. And so I think
a Stanford professor said yesterday it was a marketing ploy.
Yeah, not a chance. You know, I'll tell you, and without talking too far out of school, I remember in 2004 where no one was running to my defense, certainly people not in my party, the Democratic Party, was running away from what we did in 2004. Larry and Sergey at Google were there front and center early on, taking hits, not because of marketing, not because someone said it's a smart political thing to do. They leaned in aggressively. So with respect to fancy Stanford professors, and I love Stanford, didn't get in, but with respect to those folks, I think that's a little cynical. I think it's simply the right thing to do, and I think folks, particularly in the Valley, understand the notion of diversity in a way, and the idea of innovation in the context of diversity, and all the serendipity that comes with people living together, advancing together across their differences. They understand that's the innovative spirit.
I know Apple and Microsoft also were particularly out front on the benefits issues. I'm sure you had conversations with a lot of these companies over the last decade. Does any company or any personalities stand out to you?
Yeah, I know, it's remarkable. You know, it wasn't that long ago. In 1996, there was not one state in America that provided domestic partnership benefits, let alone civil unions or gay marriage. San Francisco really took the lead on domestic partnerships, and we had some really interesting debates with some of the biggest companies in the world, notably United Airlines, and whether or not they would accept domestic partnerships, quote unquote, doing business with San Francisco at our international airport. We finally worked those things out and worked through them. And you know, frankly, after that, it paved the way for all these other companies to start doing the same thing voluntarily. But it did take a little bit of prodding early on to start providing some baseline benefits, and eventually these companies got it because these companies are led by their talent and led by their workforce and their frontline employees, and they were the ones saying, hey, we need to step up.
And the power of Silicon Valley does seem to be expanding. We're seeing it with gay marriage. We're seeing it with immigration reform. How would you compare the power that Silicon Valley has in Washington today to the power it had a decade ago when you started this?
Well, I think in the past they've exercised their moral authority by just stepping up in debates, you know, one-off. Now you're seeing the formalization of strategies, and notably with the work that Zuckerberg's doing and others to really step up, not just on immigration. I imagine the next iteration is going to be education, which is the dominant issue, I think, for this country to be able to outcompete, not just against cheap labor, but cheap genius around the rest of the world. And so I think it's a very healthy thing. That said, when you step into the arena and you get in the political arena, you're going to get ready to get some blowback and take some hits, and there's the risk of entering into that fray.
Well, exactly. Zuckerberg's Forward US has become quite controversial, you know, being criticized for shady tactics. I mean, you know, how do you respond to that?
I may have had a different approach to how I would support that cause and effort, but I like what they ultimately want to achieve, and I embrace the notion that they're stepping into a profoundly critical debate. And I'll be honest, there is no state in the country that is poised to get bigger benefit economically and socially than California, in terms of the valley itself, in terms of the broader issue of a state of 37 million people with a disproportionate number of people that are undocumented. So this is a big deal to the state, and I'm really proud of these guys for stepping into this debate. And it's not just them. I mean, there's been others quietly in the background. You, of course, have Lorene Jobs and others that have been doing it on the DREAM Act.
Jobs' wife, of course.
And she's just been incredible, quiet, but stepping up in the right way. And so it's taking, you know, success leaves clues. If they're successful in this, people will learn different ways of perhaps navigating the political waters, but it's going to ultimately manifest in more people, I think, doing the same thing, and I think that's an extraordinarily healthy thing.